Greetings, Jarvis the Allosaurus here, and in today's coaster review, I'll be talking about the iconic roller coaster of Universal Studios Orlando, Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit. Let's get into it. Unlike my previous reviews, I have now developed a ranking system using the following categories: smoothness, aka comfortability, forces, aesthetics, which is another word for theming and maybe the look of the coaster, and of course, the fun factor. Now, like always, let's dive into some history about this ride before we get into its review. And let me tell you, man, did this ride have a problematic one. In the year 2008, on March 19, Universal Studios revealed their new attraction, Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit. The ride will be built by Maurer Rides, using their X-Car coaster type. Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit actually is the largest of the X-Car coasters, standing at a whopping 167 feet tall, having 3,800 feet of track, and reaching speeds of 65 miles per hour. This also makes it the tallest coaster among the Orlando Universal resorts. However, going with Maurer Rides was a very strange choice at the time, especially for a chain like Universal, as at the time they have only worked with B&M and Premier Rides for major coaster installments. Even more peculiar is the fact that originally a B&M coaster was planned for the spot that would be eventually taken up by Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit, but the plan was never initiated due to B&M not being able to meet their schedule. Unfortunately for Universal, they had absolutely no idea what they were getting themselves into, as a series of issues plagued Rip Ride Rockit, with the first happening even before its opening. Originally supposed to debut in April of 2009, the ride's opening was pushed back due to an anti-rollback issue on the lift hill, which caused it to actually open on August 19 of 2009. However, this was far from the end of Rip Ride Rockit's issues, with many of its features, specifically the music selection option on the ride, being some of the most problematic. To make the situation worse, the trains were stated to have an issue in September of 2010 with the coupling bars that held the trains together, which caused the coaster trains to need to be refurbed. Over the course of its history, Rip Ride Rockit faced many other complaints, many from guests about its rough ride experience, as well as its tendency to valley and stall on the lift hill, leaving guests stranded. Additionally, the load times for the ride were much higher than Universal originally expected, even with the multitude of block zones and the moving load platform, causing unnecessarily long wait times. However, its fate was practically sealed when the decision was made and revealed that the music selection was going to be cut down significantly, from 30 songs to just a mere 5 per genre of music. And that is how I experienced it, with only 5 per genre. This cut definitely caused some uncertainty about Rip Ride Rockit's future, and tragically, but unsurprisingly, it was announced in December of 2024 that it would be permanently shut down on August 18 of 2025. Anyways, and now into the actual review. Entering the coaster, I was quite surprised to see that there was absolutely no theming considering this is Universal. However, the coaster doesn't really have a solid theme either, so it's really not that big of a deal. The station has a moving platform, very similar to Wonder Woman at Six Flags Magic Mountain, which is a ride I am very familiar with. This definitely helps with capacity, as during my experience, the line was continuously moving, considering how short the trains are. Each train is just comprised of 2 cars, each car seating only 6 riders, which is definitely not ideal for a star attraction. Even so, the crew working this ride was great. And in addition, the trains are really comfortable. The seats are extremely deep, and the lap bar doesn't come down further during the ride experience, accentuating the airtime. And believe me, there is a lot of it. As for the ride experience, first the train will roll onto a chain lift segment and start climbing up the vertical lift at a surprisingly fast pace. Although the lift is much taller than hang time at Knott's Berry Farm's lift hill, I felt it wasn't as freaky because the seats were so much more deep. Arriving at the top of the chain lift, the train slows down and a surprising amount, probably to reduce stress on the chain. Then comes the first drop, which is 70 degrees. In the back row, it gives some great flowjector airtime down the whole drop, which is awesome. In the front, it gives some weak floater. There are noticeable trim brakes placed on it, however none of them hit whatsoever. Instead, these trim brakes are actually here when the trains need to perform an evacuation after stalling on the lift hill. After the giant first drop, The train then quickly rips through a non-inverting loop, which is by far the most insane element on the ride. The valley gives some great positives, and the twist at the top gives airtime and laterals simultaneously. After dropping back down to the ground, the train will then skyrocket up into the first of 4 mid-course brake runs. In the front row, entering this element gives an extremely strong pop of ejector airtime, paired with laterals as the train turns right at the top. In the back, it gives some weaker floater airtime. The brake run then slows the train down a bit, but it doesn't really hurt the overall pacing of the ride. Then comes another steep drop, which gives another pop of floater in the front and flojector in the back row. After a drop, the train will then speed through it and a super intense upwards helix, which has some really good G-force and visuals as you go through a building. At the top, it turns into an overbank turn, which then drops you back down to the ground and up into another mid-course brake run. Similar to the first mid-course brake run, the entrance into this element gives all front car riders a great pop of ejector airtime. The following drop gives more floater airtime in the front and some flojector airtime in the back. After this, Rip Ride Rockit will then go into an S-hill, giving a small pop of airtime as well as a bit of laterals. A high bank turn follows, weaving between the drop and non-inverting loop, giving a great sensation of speed as you go over the queue. Rip Ride Rockit then ascends into another brake run, giving front row riders another pop of airtime. The following drop is funky, doing a weird S-curve, giving great airtime in the back and some floater towards the front, as well as some laterals. The train then dives into a trench where it traverses a small S-hill, giving a small pop of airtime, and then goes into an extremely tight incline helix, giving great positives. Rip Ride Rockit then follows it up with yet another brake run, giving another pop of ejector in the front, and a pop of weaker airtime in the back on the following drop. Rip Ride Rockit then traverses a small airtime hill, giving a weak pop of airtime for all, before a tight ascent into the final brake run. Every time I got on this ride, this one ascent was absolutely diabolical. In a good way, of course. I remember getting absolutely extreme ejector airtime into the brakes because of how tight the apex of this curve is. After that, the ride promptly ends and returns into the station. So, all in all, what did I think of this ride? Well, I can confidently say, after riding this coaster a total of 5 times, I was very pleasantly surprised with Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit, and genuinely think it is one of the world's most underrated attractions. I genuinely like this coaster, and more so than Hulk at Islands of Adventure, plus Montu and Kumba. It was an absolute blast, getting absolutely ragdolled every time the train ascended into a brake run. The extreme ejector airtime in the front car is absolutely magical, especially on one of the rides I got on this thing where I had a ton of room between myself and the lap bar. Genuinely, the airtime on this thing was stronger than the airtime on Twisted Colossus during some moments. Anyways, here's my ranking for each category. As for smoothness, it definitely isn't the smoothest coaster and has a very significant rattle. Not as bad as some people say it is, but definitely it is there. And some of the transitions on this coaster definitely were not the best. However, overall, I'd still give the smoothness a score of 6 out of 10. Not terrible, but definitely far from good. Forces on this ride easily get a 10 out of 10 though. This ride was super forceful in terms of both positives and negatives, and laterals. Sometimes combining different forces together. It was so awesome, I'm telling you guys. As for aesthetics, I would probably give this coaster a 7 out of 10. It definitely could be an eyesore with its messy support structure, but I kind of dig it as well. And I do love myself an overly complex support structure. Goliath at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Back to review. The bright red is so iconic, and honestly, it's going to be hard to see the Universal skyline without this coaster. For fun factor, oh man, if I could, I would give this coaster an 11 out of 10. If I could, that is. But I'll say 10 out of 10 for ranking's sake. It is genuinely some of the most fun I've ever had on a roller coaster. I laughed the entire way as I was being thrown up out of my seat and being crushed by positive forces. It is up there as one of the most enjoyable coasters with Goliath and Mako. Averaging out these scores places this coaster at a solid 8.25 out of 10, and it is definitely deserving of that score. Through its 16 years of operation, whether you hated it or loved it, there is no question that this coaster was extremely important for Universal and incredibly unique. Universal truly won't ever look the same without its presence, for the better or worse. Rip Ride Rockit was really a one-of-a-kind experience, combining thrills and jamming to music, and there may never be another one like it again. Rest in peace, Rip Ride Rockit. I hope you all enjoyed the review, and I know I've not been posting a lot of dinosaur content recently, but I actually have a lot of dinosaur art that's been posted on both my Instagram, my Tumblr, and DeviantArt. And I'll put a link below if you guys want to follow those to see all my dinosaur doodles and other art stuff. Hopefully more dinosaur animations and speed paints coming soon, as well as other coaster reviews. Thank you for watching, guys.